It's time for our monthly truck update. Let's get into it. In this update, as I do in all my updates, we're going to be talking about maintenance that was performed on this truck, modifications that I made, if any, and then the miles that I drove. So I'm going to walk you through all that. The whole purpose of these, if you're new here, is just to share as an owner what I'm doing to keep this 2019 PowerStroke 6.7 on the road. I drive a lot of miles, so it ends up taking quite a bit of effort to keep everything operational and minimize downtime. Starting with maintenance, I'm actually going to be reading off my maintenance list, and I'll throw it up on the screen because we had quite a few items that needed fixed and kept up with this month. So I will walk through this. So number one, I've been doing a tire rotation. That is something I try to do every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Now, because my oil change intervals have gotten up to 10,000 miles per my oil analysis from Blackstone Labs, which I will be doing a in-depth video on that soon, they sent me back a second oil test and basically were like, your oil's great, you should go to 10,000 miles over 8,000 miles for your change intervals. So I will be doing a breakdown of that very soon, so be sure you subscribe. We did a tire rotation. Again, I've been doing that, typically 2 of those for every 1 oil change. I like to keep my tires rotated. I also don't do front to back. I actually take the fronts and cross them to the opposite rear side, and then take the backs and move them to the front. So at any point in time, the tire is spending an equal amount of time on every single position around the vehicle. And I already have 25,000 miles on these Michelin Defenders, and they still look like they're brand new. So it definitely works to do that strategy. So that tire rotation was on March 12th. Then on March 15th, I did a differential fluid change in the rear. So Ford dictates that you should be changing your differential fluid every 50,000 miles if you meet these severe duty requirements. Now, if you don't, they say every 100,000 miles, but I would say just to be safe, and if you plan on keeping your truck for a long time, you should do every 50,000 miles, especially for the rear. For the front, I'm a little bit more loosey-goosey. I don't use 4-wheel drive that often, so as long as I'm hitting it before 100K is up, that's good for me. Now, additional maintenance items. I just got back from a run to Colorado. My brother is a mechanic in Colorado and has a small shop, so I stopped by and we did changing the oil and filter. We changed all 3 fuel filters. I have a 3rd Donaldson fuel filter because I have the S&S disaster prevention kit installed on this truck. We rotated the tires again. I'm doing about 2 tire rotations per month. And then we greased the front end because I have an aftermarket steering kit and aftermarket ball joints. We replaced the front pads and rotors. So these rotors had 146,000 miles on them. So I was able to get quite a lot of miles out of them due to my driving. I don't know if the pads were replaced, but the rotors were original. I bought the truck with 49K and they had said they had replaced the pads. Rotors, I think, were original. So they definitely served their useful life. So we did pads and rotors. I didn't go with anything fancy. They just needed done. So I just went to AutoZone and got the Duralast Gold pads and rotors and threw those in there. Or my brother Oliver threw those in there. He's a great mechanic. The other fix Oliver did that was very specific and kind of odd and probably not something most of you have to worry about, but I actually have a set of Timbrins for this truck because it's a 250 and it doesn't have the heavy duty leaf spring pack in the back. And so the Timbrins were like $300. It was a great option, but the issue I found was that the bolt that holds the Timbrin on is supposed to be for your rear bump stop. And when you're taking the Timbrin on and off, it will wear out the little tiny weld that holds that kind of carriage bolt in place. And so I actually had a bolt break loose of the Ford bracket and it was just spinning. I couldn't get the bottom bolt off. And so what Oliver did was he took out all the brackets and the bolts and just tack welded around the top to get the bolts to stay so I can take my Timbrins on and off as much as I want. Again, this isn't really something that was an issue because Ford designed it poorly. It's more just because my application requires me to take those bump stops on and off. You know, I would leave the Timbrins on all the time, but it makes the ride really harsh when you're not loaded. And so I just want to be able to add and remove them as needed. And especially if I'm towing like a bigger trailer, something that's like longer than 35 feet, those tend to weigh about 10,000 pounds. And when you start to add about 1,000 pounds of tongue weight, you really need some help on the anti-squat. This last maintenance item I did wasn't something I did a lot before when I wasn't doing hot shotting, but now has kind of become a necessity just for safety. So my front driver's side and passenger side windows, and then the mirrors, both the upper and then the lower blind spot mirror on both sides, and the front window, I've actually started to wash regularly with Rain-X's window cleaner or like a Windex, just to make sure I'm able to see out of them well. When you're on the road and you're doing, anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 miles a week, you get a lot of junk on your mirrors and your windows, especially in the wintertime. And so I've found that cleaning my windows regularly inside and out really helps improve the overall visibility and just improve safety, right? If you can see better out your mirrors and your windows, especially towing a trailer, that'll mean you'll be able to see that much more clearly when there's someone either sitting in your blind spot or, there's someone pulling up next to you or passing you or whatnot. And it just mitigates any sort of issues that I might have, and just reduces the strain I feel when I'm constantly scanning, around when I'm towing a load. This month, I'm stoked to report there were some pretty big modifications made, and there will be some made. It's April now, so I guess I can't count this next mod for March, but stick around and you will hear what I did as a mod for April. I'm gonna be pretty stoked on it. But my main modification in the month of March was to install the Banks differential cover. So I had been waiting to do that. I didn't really feel like it was essential, but I had to change my differential fluid. I've been doing differential fluid every 50K. And honestly, I know there's probably some benefits to having the reduced heat that you get with all the heat fins and the ram air technology that Banks has, but I really just wanted an easy way to drain and fill my differential, and they have a really nice drain plug at the bottom of the cover. And last but certainly not least, the miles I drove in the month of March. I did about 8,600 miles. The odometer sits at 147,229 miles. It is interesting, the more miles you drive, the more maintenance you have to do, and it's kind of the double-edged sword with towing campers. It's, I get paid per mile, so theoretically you should make more money the more miles you drive, but if you're really staying dialed on your maintenance, doing 8 to 10,000 miles a month also creates a lot of additional costs around maintenance. So we'll see, but regardless, we're gonna keep racking up the miles, so make sure you stick around to see what happens and what breaks, because that's what this channel is all about. Unfortunately for me, and fortunately for you. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you checking out the channel. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time here on PowerStroke Maintenance. Cheers.